Continuing with our lesson on the Sheva Mitzvahs Ben Noach from the Encyclopedia Talmudis, Talmudical Encyclopedia, which the chief editor is Rabbi Zevin of blessed memory, and it's an encyclopedia, so it goes in Hebrew alphabetical order, and we're doing the section of Ben Noach. We've been doing this for the past number of classes, and we've actually covered all of the 7 mitzvahs, all the 7 commandments of the Bnei Noach, and after he concludes all 7, then he goes on to explain other related issues for laws of Bnei Noach. So right now, we are on the top of page Shin Nun Zayin, which would translate to 357. We're in the middle of the topic called Isuri Macherim, other prohibitions for a Ben Noach, and just to mention them, just to recap or to remind everybody that some of the topics that we're talking about. One is called Sirus, to neuter. One is called Kishuf, magic or black magic, things related to that. Another one is Kilayim, forbidden mixtures, such as breeding animals, 2 different types of animals, or doing that to trees, grafting, or whatever the correct term would be, depending on what the person is actually doing. And all of those things, which for a Jew are absolutely forbidden. And there's basically not much to discuss. It's very simple, very straightforward. It's very clear in the Torah. But the Torah is speaking to the Jew. However, according to many of the sources, actually there are different opinions, and these things are discussed and debated amongst the sages of the Mishnah, each one of these things, and the Encyclopedia Talmudit brings down every opinion, and then tells us what is the final verdict, what is the halacha, and in certain cases there is no final verdict. So it basically, as a rule, what I would say is, if there isn't a clear ruling, as long as there's a clear ruling, generally you'd find it in the Rambam, in those chapters in the Laws of Kings, which deal with the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. So if you're going to follow the Rambam's ruling, then fine. If he says it's forbidden, it's forbidden. And if he says something is permitted, then it's permitted. But in all those cases where it isn't clear or where it's disputed, and we don't have an outright ruling, so a general rule that one might want to follow is that it's better to be strict. We can get into a whole discussion, which we're not going to do now, and that would be, for instance, when it comes to Torah law for a Jew, so we have a general rule like this, but there's a lot more to it, but I'm just going to be really simplifying it and give you the general rule. If it's a Safek de'oraisa, which translates as a doubt in a biblical fulfillment or prohibition or something, then we, the Jewish people, need to be strict and follow the stricter opinion, so to say, be safe, to be safer, and therefore if one opinion says it's permissible, one opinion says it's forbidden, and it's a biblical prohibition or potential one, then we have to follow the stricter opinion. If, however, it is a Safek derabanan, which would translate as a rabbinic precept, a doubt in a rabbinic precept, where some authorities say that something is permitted, and others say no. The rabbis said it's forbidden, and we have a dispute as to did the Beis Din, the Jewish court, actually, in this case, permit it or not. In those cases, the rule is lehakel, to be lenient, and the halacha is that in those cases, one would be able to do it. It would be permissible, just because there's a doubt and it's a rabbinic law. And there's a lot to discuss about that, like why the difference and where did that rule come from, but we're not going to get into that. Question now becomes, What about for a Ben Noach? So some of these things that we're discussing may be not biblical. They may be things that were placed upon the Bnei Noach, whether it's a custom or whether it's something that they took upon themselves. So in those cases, we might be able to apply the rule that if there's a doubt, you can be lenient. And if there's a dispute and there isn't a clear-cut halakhic ruling, then you can be lenient. But otherwise, I would say that in all the cases where it doesn't seem to be a clear-cut halakhic ruling, better to be strict in all of these cases. So we're in the middle of discussing these things, and now we're going to bring up another one. We're on the second line on the right-hand column on page Shin Nun Zayin, for those that are following along inside. Now, just a quick reminder. Prior to the giving of the Torah, all of mankind, including, quote-unquote, the first Jew, Abraham, had the legal status of a Ben Noach. Torah was not yet given, so therefore all of the people had to keep the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, and we've discussed this in a different class, referring to the Sicha, the talk by the Rebbe Melech HaMoshiach about Yaakov marrying two sisters. How was he able to do that? It's against Torah law. So basically, we can learn laws from prior to the giving of the Torah that the righteous people did, how they behaved, and that would teach us for Bnei Noach, not for Bnei Yisrael. Even if we're talking about Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, or even Moshe Rabbeinu, if it's prior to the giving of the Torah. And again, that has some exceptions too, because in Mara, which we learned a while ago in one of the earlier classes, in the place called Mara, they were given a number of mitzvahs, and those mitzvahs, according to some, actually count as the giving of the Torah, even though it was a number of weeks before the revelation at Sinai, but it was considered like the beginning of or the preparation for, and therefore it's considered as part of Matan Torah. But otherwise, whatever happens in the Bible from the beginning of Bereshis, Genesis 1:1, all the way until the giving of the Torah, which is in Exodus 19, I believe, everything up to that point is basically Bnei Noach. And on that note, Yesh mitzadedim loymar. There are those that take a side to say that they hold shebnei Noach muzharim, that Bnei Noach are commanded, they're warned, al chilul shavua, with regards to desecrating or breaking their vow, an oath. Now one can say it's not one of the seven. Well, that's all these things that we're discussing are not directly one of the seven. So if a Ben Noach made a shavua, he made a vow, or he took an oath, and he desecrates that, he doesn't keep what he swore that he would do, some say that that is a transgression, that Bnei Noach are commanded. Where would they be commanded? Sheharei, for behold, Avraham v'Yitzchak, hishbiu l'Avimelech melech Plishtim, v'Yaakov hishbia es Esav. We find in the Torah that all three of the forefathers of the Jewish nation, but again, as Bnei Noach, Avram and Yitzchak, they made Avimelech swear, Avimelech the king of Plishtim, and Yaakov made his twin brother Esav swear. Now, if a Ben Noach can transgress a vow that he takes, then there's basically no point in making someone swear, because it's kind of worthless and it's not binding. V'nistapku loymar, and then this opinion is in doubt, they're doubtful, and they say shechilul shvua, that the desecration of a vow, ulai, perhaps, nichlal, is included bichlal birkas Hashem. That some say that it's counted in the prohibition of blasphemy. Hainu, meaning shelo yishava bishmoi lashav lasheker, that it's forbidden for anyone to swear in God's name either falsely or in vain. So again, when it comes to the Jewish people, and this is actually one of the Aser Sadibros, one of the so-called Ten Commandments, which apply to the Jews, as we said before. A Jew is not allowed to say God's name in vain. A Jew is certainly not allowed to swear falsely. So, according to some, that would be the prohibition of a Ben Noach, because he's using God's name, and if he does not keep what he said in the name of God, then that is actually blasphemy. All right, and then they just say very, very briefly, when it comes to the prohibition of Bal Yachel means when a person makes a vow that they will do something, and if they do not keep what they said that they would do, so there is a disagreement as to whether Bnei Noach are commanded on that. In other words, the difference between what we discussed until now and this, the shivua, the oath, means that he's swearing falsely about a fact, about something of the past. He either witnessed something, or an event took place, or he did something, or did not do something, and he's swearing falsely, or he's, swearing as saying a lie, basically, under oath. So to say a lie under oath would fall into the category of Birkas Hashem, blasphemy. But then Nidarim, Bal Yachel, that is a vow that he will do something or that he won't do something for the future. And for a Jew, that would be a prohibition called Bal Yachel. That the Torah states that if a person says they're going to do something, Lo Yachel Devarei, they're not allowed to not do what they said. So there's an argument as to whether that is a prohibition for a Ben Noach as well. Next paragraph. Bnei Noach asurim lahakriv mechusar eiver lekarban. Bnei Noach are forbidden to bring as a sacrifice an animal that is missing a limb, that type of a blemish. Now we know that Bnei Noach are permitted to bring karbanos. They can bring sacrifices, only one type though, and that is a karban oila, a burnt offering. That is the only type of a sacrifice that a Ben Noach is permitted to bring, but they may bring that. However, they are forbidden to bring a sacrifice that the animal is missing a limb. Afal pi shebalmu mutar lahem, even though Bnei Noach are permitted to bring an animal that has a blemish. Shenemar l'Noach, because God says to Noach, Umikol achai mikol basar, from all living, from all flesh. Havei behema, bring an animal or a beast, shechayim rashe evarim shelah, that its heads of its limbs are all intact. So, an animal that has a blemish, which would not be permitted for the Jews to bring, is, however, permitted for a Ben Noach to bring on his own altar. We're not talking about in the Beis HaMikdash. We're talking about Ben Noach, who decides that he wants to bring a sacrifice to Hashem, which is absolutely permissible, but it can only be a burnt offering, and it cannot be missing a limb, but it could have a blemish. So it's not the same rules as apply to the Jews. And parenthetically, being that Tisha B'Av is coming up, the 9th of Av, the day of the destruction of the first and second temples in Yerushalayim. So there is a very famous story in the Talmud, which traditionally this is something which is studied on Tisha B'Av. It's one of the parts of the Torah that is permitted to be studied on Tisha B'Av. On Tisha B'Av, we have restrictions. We're not supposed to officially learn Torah. We're only allowed to learn things which pertain to Tisha B'Av, or the things which are sad and tragic and speak about the destruction. That doesn't mean that Goy would be allowed to learn those sections, because it's still Torah. So just because it's the part of Torah the Jews are allowed to learn when they can't learn Torah, that doesn't mean that it's permitted for Goyim. After having said that, let me very briefly tell you a story. And what happened was like this. This is in the Talmud in Tractate Gittin, around 57 page, something like that, Daf Nun Zayin or so. And it's known as the story of Kamtza and Bar Kamtza. Famous story. There were two people in town. The story apparently happened in Yerushalayim. And one fellow's name was Kamtza, the other guy was Bar Kamtza. Very similar names. And somebody was making a big feast. And we don't know the person's name who was making the feast. The host made a huge feast. Invited many, many people, and all the rabbis, all the sages were present. And he then sent his messenger, the one who was going out doing the inviting, sent him out to invite Kamtza. And the guy made a mistake, and he invited Bar Kamtza instead. So Bar Kamtza, who was an enemy of the host, as opposed to Kamtza, who was a very close friend of his. So the enemy shows up because he was invited. And the host was extremely annoyed that he was there. So he walks over to him in the midst of this feast, and he tells him to leave immediately. It was a very embarrassing situation. So the Bar Kamtza pleaded, and he said, let me stay and I will pay for my meal. Whatever I eat, I will reimburse you for. So it's not really that I'm a guest. He said, no, get out. So then he continues and he says, I will pay for half of the entire feast. He says, get out. He says, I will pay for the entire feast. Just let me be. I'll reimburse you for the whole feast. Nope. And he had him thrown out. And then this fellow Bar Kamtza started to think as follows. He says, all of the rabbis were there, and no one protested. They saw what happened. They saw how he treated me. That implies that they approve of such conduct. I am going to see to put an end to this. He's a Jew. And he went to the emperor. At that time, the land of Israel was under the Roman emperor, under the Roman government. He went to the Roman emperor, and he told him that the Jewish people are rebelling against you. He said, why do you say that? Prove it. He said, I will prove it. Try to send an animal as a sacrifice to be brought from you. Send it with someone and see if they bring it. See if they bring it. They will refuse to bring it because they don't want that type of interaction. They don't want you to bring anything in their holy temple. So he said, okay, it's a good enough test. Let's see it. So he sends him with an animal. He sends this Bar Kamtza. Now Bar Kamtza decided what he's going to do is as follows. Here's his trick. He is going to make a small blemish on the animal that according to the non-Jews, it's not a problem, it's not a blemish. But according to the Jews, it is. And there are two opinions as to whether he slit the eyelid of the animal or the lip. At any rate, he made this blemish, and he now arrives at the Beis HaMikdash with special mission. He has this animal that is to be brought as a burnt offering from the emperor, on behalf of the emperor. Now, before any offering is brought, they check the animal thoroughly to make sure it has no blemish. And they immediately noticed that it has a blemish. And they caught on to what's going on over here. They understood what was happening. They didn't know what to do. They had a dilemma. So they were thinking, so the majority of the rabbis, they said, let's just sacrifice it, because if not, it's going to lead to terrible, terrible things. And let's just bring this animal. And there was one of the sages who wouldn't let. And he says, no, because if we do, word will get out. People will say that you're allowed to bring a sacrifice that has a blemish. That's not allowed. And people are going to now say that it's permitted. It'll set a precedent. So they said, okay, let's not. But then what do? Bar Kamsa is surely going to go back and report that we didn't. So they said, let's kill Bar Kamsa. And then he ain't going to go back and report. We won't bring it as a sacrifice. The emperor will never hear about what happened, because that'll be it. And no one's going to go around saying that we bring. And again, the same rabbi who did not allow them to bring the sacrifice because it had a blemish, he protests and he says, no, because then people are going to say that anyone who purposely makes a blemish on kachim, on an animal of a sacrifice, is to be put to death. It's not a capital offense. It's a prohibition. It's a negative commandment. It's not a capital offense. It's not put to death for making a blemish on an animal that's designated as a sacrifice, so we can't kill him. And therefore, they did not bring it as a sacrifice, and they didn't kill Bar Kamsa, and his plan, unfortunately, did work. He went back to the emperor. He told him that, you see, I told you the Jews wouldn't bring it as a sacrifice, and that ultimately led to the destruction of the temple by the Romans. So, if a non-Jew wants to bring a korban on his own altar to Hashem, that is permissible, even if it has blemishes, so long as it's not missing a limb. Fourth line in the paragraph. Yesh meharishonim, there are from the early codifiers, soivrim that hold, she'isur gamur huzel livnei noach, that this is an absolute prohibition for bnei noach to bring an animal that is missing a limb as a sacrifice. They muzardim alav, and they are clearly commanded, they're warned not to do it. Ella, it's just sheloi nimna bein sheva hamitzvos, it's not enumerated amongst the 7 commandments. Liyos chayavim alav, to be liable for it. Lefishikum vasehu, because this is a positive commandment, an active commandment. And remember, we said before that in order for it to be in the list of the 7, it's got to be a shev al taseh, a passive mitzvah. Even dinim, we said, which sounds like it's a kumbase to establish a court system, but even that, we said that according to many, is actually also a negative one. So anything that, in order for it to be one of the 7, it's got to be a negative commandment. Whereas this one is a positive one. Well, how is it a positive one? Shim nodar mechusar eiver, that if a ben noach vowed or designated to bring an animal which was missing a limb as a sacrifice, oimrim lo havei korban shalem. So what do we tell that individual? No, bring a proper animal. You made a vow, so you have to bring an animal as an oila. He is obligated to bring a sacrifice. But this animal he can't bring. So therefore he's told, you need to exchange, you need to bring an animal that is fit. So that would be a positive commandment. So it's not just that he can't bring an animal that's missing a limb. That mitzvah, even though it sounds like it's a negative, like a prohibition, it's actually, if that happens, it ends up being a positive act, that he needs to bring a specific animal. Even though normally, in the first place, it's optional for him to bring a korban in the first place. No one asked him to bring a korban. But in this case, he would be obligated to bring it. And the 7 mitzvahs, as we said before, are only if they are negative. passive ones. That's one opinion. V'yesh soivrim, and others, there are those which hold, she'ein chayovim al ze klal. No, that a Ben Noach he's not transgressing at all. He doesn't get any punishment for bringing an animal that it's missing a limb as a sacrifice. Alashah karban pasul. The only thing is that the actual sacrifice is invalid. So he didn't bring a sacrifice. So he didn't transgress, but it wasn't a sacrifice. He wanted to bring a sacrifice, he meant to bring a sacrifice, but it doesn't count. Now, furthermore, an animal that is a treifa. To remind you, a treifa is a term used for an animal that has some type of a health issue that it is determined by Jewish law that the animal will not survive 12 months from that moment. If the animal has such a blemish or such a defect, that is called a treifa. And that animal is not kosher for a Jew to eat, even if it was properly slaughtered and everything was done right. It is not acceptable as a karban. And in most cases, if not in every case, you would not know if it's a treifa until after you slaughter it. And therefore, if an animal was brought as a sacrifice, meaning it was slaughtered, and then they found it to be a treifa, they would have to bring another animal and do it over again. It doesn't count. If an animal is brought as any karban, whatever it may be, if it's found to be a treifa, it does not count. So for a Ben Noach, same thing. If he brings an animal, he takes a sheep, a kosher sheep, and it has no blemish whatsoever. Not only is it not missing any limb, it has no blemish even. And he brings it as a sacrifice, and after they slaughter it, you find that the animal is a treifa. Found a hole in its lung. So then, that is also forbidden. Shenemar, because the verse states, lehachayois, to give life. The treifa eina chaya, and a treifa is not considered living, it will not live. I mean, not to get off topic, but just to give you a little bit of an appreciation of what it means when we say a treifa is not living. There's a whole discussion. If a person kills another human being that was a treifa, is that called murder or not? Is he liable? The person was a treifa. That means the person was not going to live another 12 months. So he's a treifa. It's a different category. But when it comes to an animal, certainly that animal is not considered a regular living animal. Or alternatively, what's the source that we know that a treifa is forbidden for a Ben Noach to bring as a sacrifice? Mishum shenemar, because the pasuk states, itcha, with you, meaning bedoimim lecha, that they need to be similar to you, to exclude treifa. So that's all one opinion. So we have two opinions as to what the source is, but this opinion clearly states that a treifa is forbidden for a Ben Noach to bring as a sacrifice.
But you don't know it's a treifa until after it's been sacrificed.
That's right. So in other words, he'd have to bring a substitute, and that carbon wouldn't count. It's not considered that he's actually transgressing, because the same thing can happen even in the temple with Jews. It's not a transgression. I mean, it's certainly a mistake. But let's say he knows it's a treifa. Let's say he knows before they slaughter it. He knows it's a treifa. They took an x-ray, and there's a hole in the lung. Well, then it would be forbidden to even slaughter it for the sake of a sacrifice.
But they would slaughter it, realize it's a treifa, and then
not be
withdraw it without burning it.
Right. So in other words, let me explain. When it comes to bringing a sacrifice, the actual sacrifice ceremony of any sacrifice, again, by Bnei Noach, there's only a burnt offering, which means basically that the entire animal is put on the altar and burned. Before it's put onto the altar, it's slaughtered. That's not the sacrifice. The blood is caught into a vessel, into a receptacle. That blood is then sprinkled either onto the side of the mizbeach of the altar, then the innards of the animal the fats and different things, or in this case for Bnei Noach, all the limbs and all the everything, the whole animal, after it's slaughtered, is then burnt onto the altar. So what we're talking about over here is after they slaughter it, then they make an internal check, examination, and they find it to be a treifa. They didn't do anything wrong yet. Now, if they were to take that animal that they found to be a treifa and offer it on the altar, that would be considered a sin. V'yesh soivrim, and then there are those that hold the condescending opinion. Shetreifa mutaras livnei noach lekarban. They disagree and they say that a treifa is permitted for Bnei Noach to bring as a sacrifice. V'loi mi'ata teira treifa, and the Torah did not exclude a treifa be consolateva with regards to bringing it into the ark of Noah. It's for a side reason. It's because a treifa is not fit, it's not appropriate for the world to have an existence. But not because of the disqualification of a sacrifice. So let me explain. We're learning this actually directly from Noah. Speaking about, Shem says, Bnei Noach, this is as Noach as you can get. This is Noach bringing the animals into the teva, into the ark, as a preparation for this great flood. All right. God commands Noach, and he tells him to bring in how many animals? 2 by 2. Male and female. So that they can then reproduce and that everything can continue. He's going to destroy the world and then start all over again. So we need to have, 1 male pig and 1 female pig. Otherwise, they'll be extinct. All right. Those are all the future non-kosher animals. How many animals did Noach have to bring of the kosher ones? 7. And Noach immediately understood, what's the point of 7? 2 would be sufficient, male and female. If the whole point is that they shouldn't be extinct, it's good enough. So he understood that what Hashem wants of him is that after the flood's all over, and after everything subsides and they come out of the teva, out of the ark, he should bring sacrifices of these animals. Now, obviously, he's not going to supposed to slaughter and sacrifice all of them, because then we defeat the purpose and they'll be extinct and there won't be any future kosher animals. All right, so we understood that he was supposed to bring some of them as a sacrifice, and then there'll still be remaining animals to be able to reproduce and continue that species. Fine. And Hashem tells them to bring into their lahachayois itach, to live with you. Some say from the word lahachayois, that means it can't be a treifa. Some say from the word itach, with you, can't be a treifa. And this opinion that we're now saying said, no, there's nothing wrong with a Ben Noach bringing a treifa. A treifa is allowed to be brought as a karban, as a sacrifice. They slaughter the animal, and they find that it's a treifa. No problem. It's not the Beis HaMikdash. This is not a Jewish karban. So he can take the blood, he can take the entire animal, put it on the altar as a sacrifice, as a burnt offering, and it's accepted by God. And he brought a perfect burnt offering for a Ben Noach. So why does the Torah exclude bringing treifa? It says, L'achayos itach. Why does the Torah exclude that Noach can't bring into the teva an animal that he knows to be a treifa? Because that would defeat the purpose of the continuity of reproducing. Because if the animal is not going to survive, so then chances are the animal will die before it has a chance to give birth. That's all. Nothing to do with being fit or not for a sacrifice. So again, we have 2 opinions, and it doesn't give a clear ruling. So again, if I may, I would suggest that if someone does want to bring a sacrifice, that they should take the stricter view in both of these points. A, that the animal cannot be missing a limb, and B, that it should not be a treifa. because we have two opinions. Next paragraph. Akum, a non-Jew. Shehika es Yisrael, that hit a Jew. He physically gave a hit to a Jew. Chayav Misa is liable to the death penalty. Shenemar, for it is stated, and here's the source for how we know that if a non-Jew strikes a Jew, he's to be put to death. Because it says, Vayifen, and he turned, Koi v'choi v'chulu. Here, this way, and so this way, he looked to his right, he looked to his left, he looked all around. Vayach es hamitzri, and he smote the Mitzri. He killed him. That's talking about Moshe. When he went out to see what's happening with his brethren, and he saw one of the Egyptians beating a Jew. And he had compassion for his fellow Jew, Moshe. So he looked to make sure that no one would see. And he looked this way, looked that way, and then he killed the Egyptian. So the question is, why did he kill the Egyptian? What did the Egyptian do that he deserved to be put to death? And it wasn't like he said that it was in the midst of the Egyptian trying to kill the Jew, or what we would call a Roy Dave. He finished. He was beating the Jew. The Jew was beaten. That's it. He didn't kill the Jew. And now, for striking a Jew, Moshe killed the Egyptian. Shehargo, he killed him, mipnei shehika ish ivri, because he hit an ivri, a Jewish person, which is interesting because it's before Matan Torah. So how could there be a Jew? It's like almost, I don't know if this would be called a catch-22, but how it's very interesting that we're learning from here that if a non-Jew strikes a Jew, he's to be put to death because it's before Matan Torah. And we're saying that the non-Jew hit an Ivri. He's a Jew. And therefore, he has to be put to death. Now he says like this. You should know that the death penalty over here is only in the hands of the heavenly court. See, many times, even though the general rule is that anyone who transgresses any Ben Noach, that is, who transgresses any of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, it's a capital offense. That's true. And in most cases, he is actually put to death by the court, or that's what it should be. There are cases, though, where we say it's a capital offense, but we clearly state that the court should not and would not put him to death. And there's no technical thing missing over here. There's a proper warrant, whatever it is necessary. We know for a fact that he did it. There's witnesses. Yet we say it's a capital offense, but we're not going to kill for it. That would be, in this case, according to some, a non-Jew that hits a Jew, it's a capital offense, but it is from the heavenly court, that they would kill him. Shein halimud el asmachta balma. And therefore, this form of deriving this law from Moshe looking this way and that way and killing the Mitzri is what's called an asmachta. Asmachta is a legal, technical term in the Talmud, which means that when we have a certain law and it's not sourced in a verse, but rather we have a verse to support it. It's almost as if it's hinting to it. It's not the source. The source is an oral law. However, we have a verse that seems to imply that. So that would be this case. And then that, of course, would answer the question that we raised and said, that how can you bring a proof from there when he hit the Ivri if nobody's Jewish? And it would be like one Ben Noach striking another Ben Noach, because this was before the Exodus, before the revelation at Sinai. So technically, all of the Bnei Yisrael, all of the Ivrim, the Hebrews, are Ben Noach. So the Mitzri hit a Ben Noach. So why is that a capital offense? He didn't kill him. So how are we learning out from? So this explains that. It's not that we're deriving it from there. And it's also not really a chiyuv misa. He's not going to be put to death by the court, but it's a chiyuv misa b'dei shamayim by the court. And this verse is a smachta. It's supporting. It's like hinting to us that a non-Jew that hits a Jew is liable to be put to death.
So, Rabbi, still like out in the open, then, or still up in the air, then, if Moshe was wrong or not in that?
He was certainly right. The question is, what are we to learn from there? Mm-hmm. In other words, can we use that? You're asking...
If everybody had a den of Ben Noach...
Right, so then why is he killing him? You know, Ben Noach hit a Ben Noach, why is he killing him?
Yeah, if it was brought to a court, a Ben Noach court, Moshe would probably be penalized.
You're saying for killing him?
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why he had to flee. Like he knew heaven. Well, anyways, yeah.
Where's he fleeing from?
I'm sorry?
Where is he fleeing from? Which court? The heavenly court?
No, he's going towards the heavenly court.
So where is he go? Where is he fleeing from?
He's fleeing from unjust.
Well, we know from the story of Shechem that there's already a concept of the Jewish people operating as the Jewish people.
Well,
I thought they were operating as Bnei Noach.
Yeah.
In that aspect.
because what he did was he transgressed, right? And then they all transgressed because they didn't have dinim.
Yeah, this is a slightly different.
That was all. It was all with Ben Noach. He stole, right?
I thought it had something to do with the land of Israel, that it happened in the land of Israel, and they had a certain authority.
I don't think so.
No?
We didn't. I mean, maybe there are those commentators that say that, but we didn't learn that.
Yeah,
We were saying clearly that because he transgressed and he was not brought to justice, that's why they're all transgressors. That's why they were all, and that's a capital offense for Ben Noach. But here, Moshe is killing someone, which also needs to be understood, because even if, let's say,
Yeah, this is interesting to me.
let's say it would be after the giving of the Torah, and let's say that the Ivri that he hit is a Jew, not a Ben Noach.
Well, now he has a din of a Jew, though.
What?
Well, a Yisrael has a din of a Yisrael now, so that would be different, right?
No. What would happen if a guy strikes a Jew after the giving of the Torah?
After?
Yeah.
Then
Does the Jew have a right? Does anybody have a right to kill the guy? No. He's chayav misa, but the only one's killing is based in Shemaila. He's the heavenly court.
because that's the way it's written.
Well, no,
that's derived.
No, because this is what they hold. So the question is, how can Moshe kill him? Yeah. It's not. There's a double question here. One,
yeah, right. That's what I'm saying.
Even if you're going to say somehow that it was a Jew, even though the Torah wasn't given yet, but he's still so.
That's my question, I guess. Are you saying you have the same question?
Well, no. I thought no. You're asking. There's two parts to the question.
Okay.
You're asking.
The actual in the present time of
when he did it, it was a Ben Noach who hit a Ben Noach.
Yeah, and then the other question is,
even
they're using after Matan Torah, now they're using that as a proof text for today.
But I'm saying the next part after that is. Even if it were to be after Matan Torah, and a guy would strike a Yehudi, a Yisrael, you still can't kill him.
Right.
He's chayav misa. It's a capital offense, but no one's supposed to kill him. It's supposed to be done by the heavenly court.
Right.
So there's a number of questions on that.
Yeah, right. That's an interesting. I've never...
Well, be that as it may, V'afilu chaval bo yeinu nerag. And even if he wounded him, wasn't just that he hit him, but he actually made him bleed.
Who made who bleed?
If a
Of a
guy
non-Jew, yeah.
hits a Jew, he's still not killed. It's certainly a capital offense, but the Beis Din does not put him to death. Okay, so the question now becomes, so what exactly is the prohibition? What's
what's going on?
wrong with a non-Jew hitting a Jew? Begeder ha'isur, so to be able to categorize this prohibition of a non-Jew hitting a Jew, which is a capital offense that we don't kill for, Yeshayim, some say, shumishum gezel, that it's because of robbery. He's stealing. And therefore, and according to that, if a Ben Noach hits another Ben Noach, which would answer our point over here, then it's also a capital offense.
What would he steal? Like his livelihood or his...
Well,
steal something from him?
What is he stealing?
He could be stealing something intangible. Maybe.
Right.
Or it could be maybe intangible, like something like honor. Or it could also be something maybe tangible, like maybe he hurt him and he can't work or something. I don't know.
Well, then that would depend on that. It's only if that's the case. But here, seemingly, we're saying any type
just
of...
kind of slap
Right.
him or something.
Yeah. So this is the opinion of the Ran, as he brings in footnote 317. I'm sorry, no. Yeah. Okay, this is in the Ran that some say that it's because of Gezel. V'yeshayim, and some say, Davka Kishika Yisrael. No, it does not apply if we're a non-Jew to hit a non-Jew. Only if the non-Jew hits the Jew. Yishum Kedushas Yisrael. And the reason there is because of the holiness or the sanctity of the Jew. And the Ran brings down both of these opinions. The Ran brings down that some say that it applies even for a Ben Noach to hit a Ben Noach is the capital offense, because it's stealing, somehow. And some say no, it's only if a Ben Noach hits a Jew, and it's not just because of stealing, but it's because of the Kedusha, the sanctity that the Jew has, and this person is like somehow desecrating the
But
holiness of the
under
Jew.
which of the 7 mitzvahs would that be?
Good question.
Well, the Ran's going to be talking about after Matan Torah.
Sure. This whole thing is after Matan Torah. Even though Moshe is the source for it, but we're talking about after Matan Torah.
Oh,
Moshe is only an asmachta.
yeah, sorry.
Moshe case is only
I
asmachta.
I see what Bob's saying. He's saying that Ben Noach should be warned or something like that, or he should, how
Which one of the 7 is it?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to tell me it's stealing, okay, so then it's one of the 7.
It's probably something like the name, desecrating the name or something like that, I would assume.
Which one is that? That's blasphemy? So maybe it's a blasphemous act. A Jew represents God in this world. He's a walking, talking neshama, a soul and a body.
That'd be my guess.
And how dare you hit him? That's a blasphemous act.
Yeah. In other words, like godliness literally comes down or whatever, and you are physically attacking that rather than like just being passive or helping.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't say that. It doesn't explain it.
That's a good question, though. Yeah, I would think like just, I know I'm probably getting into more like a Hasidic or Kabbalistic type view, but yeah, like a Ben Noach needs to be passive. So if he sees godliness and he's actively trying to push that godliness away, something tells me that's, even though it's like not a mitzvah, but that seems to be like the like a primary aspect of a Ben Noach.
See, the Rambam clearly holds that it's only if a Ben Noach hits a Jew. That's what he rules. He doesn't say that if a Ben Noach hits a Ben Noach, that it's a capital offense. Okay, next category, next topic. The last line on the column on the right. Bikum va'aseh. When it comes to being active, to getting up and doing, proactive. Bein sheva ha-mitzvah is amongst the 7 mitzvahs. Loi nechshevu ela mashehu sheval kaseh. What is counted is only, exclusively something which is sit and don't do, being passive. All the 7 mitzvahs have to be something which is passive. Avoloi mashu bekum vaseh, but not something which is positive and active. That can't be one of the 7. Milvad mitzvahs dinim, with the exception of dinim.
See, he's kind of talking about my point.
Which is?
If a non-Jew, if a Ben Noach is actively doing something that is bad, then that's probably always going to be against one of the 7 somehow.
All right, but the point is that all of the 7, by definition, to start off, what is the prohibition? They're all don'ts.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't. They're all 6 of them,
Yeah,
except for dinim.
Yeah, so if he's actively doing something, it better be something good. Because if not, it's actively bad, and therefore it's going to be against the 7 somehow.
Yeah, but that's one way of saying it. The other way to say it is that as long as a Ben Noach is not transgressing any of those things, he could do anything and he's good to go.
Yeah.
Right? In other words, just, don't kill. All right, I'm good.
Yeah.
You didn't kill anybody? Good. 1 down, 6 to go, or 5 to go if you're going to say dinim is a 7. Don't steal. Nothing. Can't steal anything. Okay? Don't steal.
It is interesting.
Don't commit adultery. Okay? No adultery. Fine. Don't eat a limb off of a live animal. Okay? No limb off any live animal. I'm fine.
It does seem to assume, though, that the Ben Noach then does have some kind of, or needs some kind of sense of things that are seemingly beyond the 7. For instance, like not hitting a Jew, he would need to sense that holiness and that sanctity then.
Well, he's told the rules are there.
Yeah.
We need to teach him the rules. Even if he doesn't have a sensitivity and he doesn't sense the sanctity or the holiness. He's just a guy. Okay, don't curse him. Got it.
Yeah,
okay. So
I think when it comes to the 7, it's not necessarily up to you, right? It's up to you to do it through the Torah, to make sure that he's doing them properly through the Torah.
What do you mean? What do you mean by doing them properly?
But the 7,
That he's not transgressing.
yeah, but his 7, I think it's up to other Bnei Noach, like his parents and stuff like that.
The 7?
I think so. I thought that's how they were.
The 7 are very clear. Don't.
Right, but that's not something that you have to. No, let me see how to word this. That's not something where the Ben Noach who transgresses say, "Well, I never had a Jew tell me that."
So Ben Noach that kills, he murders, and he said no one ever told him not allowed to.
Right, he's still obligated because his parents should have told him, his society that he lived in should have told him.
And what happens if?
But it does. He. But what you're saying, or what it sounded like you were saying, is that a Jew needs to tell him, like.
Well, not necessarily. It's the obligation of the Jews to force, to compel all of them to keep the 7. But if they're doing it on their own, then we don't have to go around. It's not like.
Well, what I'm saying is that's your obligation, but the Ben Noach's obligation is that he needs to know these things.
And how does he know them?
How does well, I thought it said something that the other Bnei Noach need to teach him.
All right, that'll work. And if they don't,
Yeah.
then the Jewish people have to teach them.
So what I'm saying is, so then, therefore, it's inherent within the Ben Noach community, apart from non-Jews, that the Ben Noach community has a sense that the Jewish people are a holy people and that they're sanctified and that you shouldn't be hitting them. You can punch your brother or whatever, blah, 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 but you can't hit a Jew. So, like, in other words, the Bnei Noach have to have a sense that the Jewish people are like Goy Kadosh, basically. They're a holy people.
I'm not going to disagree, but I don't see why or what leads you to say that it has to be so. Why can't it just be that there's a set of rules? And here's the rules. These 6 are prohibitions, and they include other things, such as don't hit a Jew, or don't swear falsely, But they're all don'ts. They're all things that you can't do.
Right. So, in other words, they would have to have learned that from the Torah, or they would have had to get that from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like what it says, like, instead of saying, well, we learned that from the Torah of Moshe, most Bnei Noach are going to say that. Most Bnei Noach are going to say, well, my daddy told me this, my daddy told me that, or my mama told me this.
As long as they told him about the 6 or the 7, whatever you want to put it, putting dinim aside, they told him about the 6. So if they didn't tell it because it's Moshe from Hashem at Sinai, so it's not ideal, and it's not can't be Chasidim Masoilam, but it's certainly good enough that he's not transgressing and he's not to be put to death and he won't be punished.
But still, even within that more secular version of Bnei Noach, this law is still within that those laws.
But that's because he's informed about it. There are a lot of details. When you tell him that he can't steal, so he has a lot of questions. Okay, so that gets really, really complicated. Am I allowed to cheat in this way? Am I allowed to lie? Okay, so there's a lot of details about it. So same thing. One of the details is that you can't hit a Jew. When you say you can't kill, how about self-defense? How about in time of war? How about abortion? There are like a lot of questions that come up. Or you say I can't, and every one of them has all of its details. That's fine. But the point is that except for dinim, they're all sheival taseh, to be passive.
It's just interesting. Like why, just you can say from a philosophical perspective, why do non-Jews, let's say you have Bnei Noach, who don't have a nefesh or elohis, a godly soul, would they need then to see a sanctified people and a godly people? If there's no impression of godliness on them, if there's no nefesh elohis coming in them, then why do they need any kind of connection to godliness and sanctification?
Who says they do, for argument's sake?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Well, why? But it's kind of implying here that could be the case where there does need to be some kind of sanctification and godliness in the view, in the periphery of Bnei Noach. And why would that be?
Where do you see that there needs to be? If a Ben Noach never comes in contact with a Jew in his life, right? He lives in Evansville,
right,
and he's never seen a Jew in his life,
right,
and he keeps all 7. It's good to go. He never had the opportunity of hitting a Jew or not.
Right.
It wasn't like he ever even entertained the thought.
Right.
It's okay. So there's no interaction, or as you're saying, there's no, sanctity that he's
ever come in contact
with. That's fine. Strictly on a, nigla, revealed, exoteric level.
Right.
There's,
Yeah, it just brings a lot of questions. It's just interesting, I guess. I'm pointing it out.
Right. No, cause the whole thing so far, when he puts it like this, it sounds like a Ben Noach's life is, at least as far as his purpose in life, as far as his relationship with Hashem, if we can even use that term, is very shallow at best. It's like he doesn't have to do anything. It's just don't do these things. Now, although for the Jewish people there are more prohibitions than commandments of doing, there's 365 don'ts and there's 248 do's, but still a lot of do's, 248. Here by the Ben Noach, we're saying that they're all don'ts. So it's like, how am I serving Hashem? By not cursing him? How about if I bless him? Literally. Can I do that? Can I make a bracha? How about if I pray to him? Is that okay? She would say, yeah, it's okay. Okay. We're saying there's no obligation. Just don't curse him. Don't worship anything other than him. Do I have to worship him? Saying, no. You don't have to worship anything, anybody. Do I have to believe in him? So we know that they do, but the question is, why? Who says? No idolatry. Okay, so I'm not going to worship anything. But can a person be an atheist? Isn't it, like he's not worshiping anything unless you're going to make the argument, well, then you're worshiping yourself, you're worshiping nature, but that gets very philosophical. But on a very simplistic level, the guy does not, he's not religious at all. And he's keeping the 7. So again, it's not ideal because he's got to keep the 7 because Hashem said so through Moshe, which means that he clearly accepts Hashem.
It's like B'nai Noach, the passivity of it is to create a vacuum in a sterile, pure place.
Right.
And the Jew and Yisrael as a nation creates a positive force that fills the vacuum, and it naturally wants to suck and stick together. That's kind of what I'm getting at, is I think that Ben Noach, even though it's definitely the 7, not the hidden Jew, the flip side is that Yisrael is a holy people, and B'nai Noach, in their purity, when Ben Noach is doing the 7,
Right.
in their purity, they're supposed to welcome, they're supposed to allow a resting place for that godliness to come in.
Right.
And I think the non-Jew has to be visible of that holiness, or else he could transgress. How are you going to tell a Jew from a non-Jew, or an Ivri from a non-Ivri, in a time when there was no demarcation at that point? There was no other din between a Ben Noach and a Ivri.
We still got another half a dozen pages.
Yeah.
He's got to have something in there.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, at this point, it sounds like it's very dry, and it just means don't. And then he says, what about dinim? That's the exception. So why is it, once you make an exception, so then we're not going to be limited by 7, right? You're going to, for all I know, you have 70. So sh'af al pi, a second line on the left-hand column, that even though shu b'kum v'asei, that the mitzvah of dinim, of having a court system, a justice court system, is a positive one, hu gam sheval taseh. It's also a negative one. It's also a passive one. Hainu, meaning, kum v'asei mishpat, get up and do justice, judge righteously, v'sheiv al taseh avel, and sit and do not do corruption, do not judge unjustly. So, in other words, in the positive commandment, there's an element of being passive. Shafi luimeinu mitzvah lasis mishpat, meaning to say that even if the Ben Noach is not commanded to do justice, to actively judge, v'yoyshevu batel, and he's sitting idly by, muzaru shaloi lasis avel, he's still commanded not to do an injustice. So that means to say that we've squeezed in dinim into this list of passive mitzvahs as well. All right? In other words, even though at face value, dinim is certainly a positive commandment, but because there is this element to it of being passive, that's good enough. And now we can say that, in a sense, all 7 mitzvahs are all passive. Even though dinim is the exception, but it also can be categorized as being passive. That's very important.
The not to do injustice.
Right, not to do injustice.
Not to do injustice would be where it's a capital offense.
Well, he didn't say that. Not necessarily true. In other words, it could be that failing to do justice is a capital offense, and that's only because it has in it the element of the opposite of don't do injustice. You see what I'm saying? In other words, Shechem, what they do? Nothing. They were passive. So that was a capital offense. So they were passive. Right? Weren't they supposed to be active? Yeah. They were supposed to be active and judge. And they can't be passive and not judge.
One way to look at it is if you see something bad, sometimes you're actively doing something to overrule something that you feel like you should be doing. I'm actively not going to create a base then because it'll complicate my life or whatever.
It's a little bit of a a twist.
The negative is a positive type thing.
Yeah. And the question becomes, so then every positive thing can have an element of negativity to it, right? Anything positive, if you don't do it right. You can say that about almost anything. But somehow that's not the case. Somehow, all the other things that the Ben Noach are supposed to do, if it's not one of the seven, it's because besides the other things that we listed, like kilayim and kishuf and sirus, besides those, but whatever we say that a Ben Noach should do, like when the Talmud speaks about it, and it says that the Ben Noach is obligated to do this, and then you say, okay, so then why are there only seven? So the Gemara answers, because those are positive ones. So take any one of those. You can also have the passive approach to it. Like let's say...
Dinim is a good example.
Well, no, that's the whole point. Dinim is the one that we're talking about. So let's take, for example, tzedakah. So for the Jew, tzedakah is a positive and a negative commandment. It says it both. The verses speak about it in the positive. Open up your hand and give. And then it says, do not hold your hand closed tight and hold back from giving. Honoring parents. It's a positive commandment. Well, don't dishonor them. That's passive. You could almost say it about anything.
That's really good.
Well, he's going to talk about it. So we'll get there. He's going to talk about being fruitful, about tzedakah. So let's see. So we have a number of questions or a number of things that we need clarification. And they're kind of on hold. Next one. In the second paragraph, on the left-hand column, in Shin Nun Zayin. Nochri sheshavas mimelachtoi yoim shalem chayav misa. A non-Jew that rested, that refrained from doing his work for an entire day, I guess for a 24-hour period, that is a capital offense. Shenemar, for the verse states,
Better get to work, Bob.
V'yoim v'layla lo yishboisu, that day and night shall not rest. Okay. Hashem created the world, and then after the flood, so he says that he makes the seasons and everything, and then the verse says, and day and night will not subside. Umusav loy al sheishes ha'itim amuzkarim sham bilvad. And this verse is not only referring to what it speaks about the 6 seasons, where it says spring, summer, winter.
The 6 seasons.
Yeah. Well, it speaks over there about the 6
Is
times.
it talking about in Hebrew?
Yeah, it says kar v'choim, kaitz v'choyref. It speaks about
Like the rainy seasons and stuff?
yeah, cold and hot and winter and summer and autumn and spring. So besides those, and then it says day and night won't subside. Elo'af al b'nei ha'adam. This verse we're interpreting to also refer to people. Shelo yishboi, so that they shall not rest mimalachtam from their work yom v'layla for an entire day and night. V'azharasam zui misasam. And this warning is their death penalty, meaning they were warned. The verse says it, they're warned. V'lav dafka, and not necessarily sheshavas b'yem HaShabbos, that he rested on the day of Shabbos. It's not only Shabbos that he's chayav misa if he rests and makes it into a Shabbos. But even one of the regular weekdays, any day, a Wednesday, if for 24 hours on the fourth day of the week, he refrains from doing melacha, that is a capital offense. Because it says, day and night, they shall not rest. Well, it's not one of the seven. Lo nimna bein sheva mitzvahs, it is not listed, it's not enumerated amongst the seven, is one of the seven. Why? Because this is a positive one. Meaning, get up and do work. So again, the mitzvah of Shabbos for a Jew does have a double mitzvah to it. It is a positive and a negative. The way the verse says it is, do not do melacha. Can't do that type of work, for lack of a better word. And it says, you shall rest. So since it says, don't do malacha, so therefore if a non-Jew makes for himself a Shabbos, whether it's on Shabbos or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it doesn't matter, if he keeps Shabbos, he is transgressing a positive command because he's supposed to go work instead of resting. So that's why it's not one of the seven. Because for Rishonim, and then the Rishonim write, Shezuhi, that this is Achas Mishtei Mitzvahs Aseh, one of two positive commandments, Shenois V'livnei Noach Al Sheva Mitzvahs, that were added to the seven. In other words, the seven are negative, and there are two additional mitzvahs. So in reality, there's 9 mitzvahs, according to these Rishonim. 7, including dinim, are negative, and 2 are positive, and one of them is that they have to work, not rest.
So is
I'm sorry, and what's the second one? We said there's this one of the 2. So if you look in footnote 324, the second one is tzedakah, to give tzedakah. So that is a positive commandment, and that's why it's not in one of the 7. So there's a total of 9. 7 don'ts, and 2 which are positive. What do you want to say?
So is a Jew's work to rest on Shabbos?
Is a Jew's work? Oh, you're saying because the verse says day and night shall not stop. So how does a Jew?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's a good point, but I don't think we need to come on to that explanation, because the point is that the Torah says the Jew shall rest. So that overrides the fact. No,
it's explicit.
Nature has to continue. A goy is part of nature. A goy is like the sun.
And it's not commanded. It's like you're not commanded. You were commanded then.
You were commanded to continue. He commanded all the seasons continue. He commands day continue, commands night continue. In other words, world, go on.
Yeah.
And who rests? Hashem rests. And who does he tell to rest? The Jew.
And it's not like he said, oh, by the way, I created you, son. Now do some new things for me later on.
Right. So the non-Jew is just part of this nature, that therefore they can't stop. Nechleku Rishonim, there is a dispute amongst the Rishonim, begeder isur zeh. What exactly, how do you categorize this prohibition of resting, of not doing melacha on any given day? Yesha imrim, some say, shestam menucha nesr lahem, that just plain rest is forbidden for them. Even if they're not intending it as an obligation. They're not viewing it as a religious thing. They're not saying, I am going to refrain from doing it. No, they just can't take it easy and have a vacation. And how do you say vacation in England?
Holiday.
That's right. That's right. Kishabos shu yoim shvisa li Yisrael. in a sense that it's like Shabbos, which is a day of rest for the Jew, Oy ke'echad b'Shabbos, or like on Sunday, sha'noitzrim sheivsim by mishum chiyuv dasam, that the Christians, they rest on Sunday because of their religion. So it's not like that. Some say that the prohibition is not like for the Jew who rests on Shabbos or for the Christian who rests on Sunday. The prohibition is they're not allowed to just be idle and not do work. Even on a day that's not a day of rest for any religious reason. It's not Saturday, it's not Sunday. They're not allowed to just say, we're going to have 24 hours of chilling out, no work. No, not allowed to. Would you like the sun to do that? No. You want to go to the beach, and you want the sun to shine. So you can't just, no work today. That's what some say. That's Rashi.
But at the church, they still do work.
Oh, so we didn't say exactly when we speak about malacha, it doesn't mean the 39 malachas a Jew,
Yeah, what's it mean by malacha?
Right. It's
Well, what does it say? Does it say his malacha?
yeah, that's right, malachtoi.
They start their Sunday service by lighting
It says
candles.
his malacha.
Well, right, malachtoi, which means that it's a relative term for each person.
Mm-hmm.
So for the cobbler, it's that work. For the butcher, it's that work. For the candlestick maker, for the baker, etc. It would be whatever your job is, don't take a break. You need to do your work 7 days a week.
So the priest is the high of Misa.
Is or is not?
Joke. I'm joking. He said he's not high
Right,
of
because
Misa.
he's doing his work. Well, it's like the Havdil, they say about rabbis.
Yeah, I
They
was
say
thinking
that their 1 day of work is on Shabbos.
That's funny. How does that happen, by the way? Like, does it... Do you just... Is this one of those things where you just, like... Do you get paid 6 days a week and then you just...
Oh, no, that's actually a very good point. It's not so simple.
Yeah.
A Jew can't get paid for doing work on Shabbos. Doesn't matter what the work is.
Yeah.
No, that's not simple.
Yeah.
He basically is getting paid for the week as well, even though 90% of his work is Shabbos, but he's getting paid.
You should do that as a joke one day. Just come on, I'm not... I want to sit back today, guys.
I don't want to work on Shabbos.
Yeah.
V'yesh Eimrim. And some say, the other opinion, Sheha that the prohibition, Kishemibade das, it's only when he makes up a religion, and he makes, even if it's not Shabbos, but he makes even a weekday, but the point is he's making it like Shabbos as a religious act. Certainly it goes without saying that if he makes a festival for himself, that would be forbidden. So according to Rashi, that was the first opinion. No matter what, even if he just says, we are going to have vacation, and therefore no work, guys, that's not allowed. According to the Rambam, no, it has to be for religious purpose. So either he wants to keep Shabbos like the Jews, that's not allowed. And even if he doesn't want to keep Shabbos like the Jews, but he wants to keep Shabbos like he just made up, and he wants to do it on Wednesday. Or if he's doing it like the Christians on Sunday. And any one of those is forbidden because it's from a religious perspective. But otherwise, the guy says, you know what, I'm tired, and I want a day off, and I'm not going to work now for 24 hours. According to the Rambam, that's fine. That's not called transgressing. That's not called keeping a Shabbos. And so then one can get into the discussion, and as we've pointed out, Reb Moshe Feinstein has a responsa about Thanksgiving.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the question is, sounds like it's a good thing. They're thanking Hashem. But is that making up a holiday? The Rambam says that the Bnei Noach cannot make up any religious holiday. You can't make a Shabbos for yourself So what do you mean Thanksgiving? You want to give thanks to Hashem, thank Him every day. What does it mean? You designated a day and you make customs about what to wear or what to say or what to eat or where to go or what not to do. That's a religious thing. You can't do that. That would be one way of looking at it. And then the question is, well, what about 4th of July? So that's not a religious thing. It's a patriotic,
It's a secular, like, national thing.
Even though you are focusing on thanking Hashem.
For 4th of July?
Yeah, let's say the 4th of July. 4th of July, I just learned today, was established as a legal holiday.
Oh.
Legal holiday in 1941 on June 23rd. And the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach writes that in a letter to President Bush in 1991, pointing out, because Bush...
Or Reagan.
No,
Okay.
1991.
Okay.
It's Bush.
Okay.
So President Bush sent a letter...
Sorry, I read it differently.
What do you mean?
I read a different letter. He was talking to Reagan about, I think, the 4th of July.
Really? So 1991 marked 50 years since the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach came to the United States. So Bush sent him a letter congratulating him on the anniversary of his 50 years of coming to the United States. And the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach, in his response, in his acknowledging and thanking him for his wishes, points out that by divine providence, the day that he arrived in 1941...
I did read this letter.
Really?
Yeah.
I just saw it today, I think, for the first time.
Okay.
That the day that he arrived in 1941 is the day that it was established that the 4th of July is a day to be, whatever the Congress passed, that it's a day of focusing on Hashem, and it's a solemn day. It doesn't say anything about fireworks. It's a day of, giving thanks.
Yeah. Because you mentioned in there one of the presidents, or somebody wrote about how it was like divine providence that there was a revolutionary war or something like that. Like Hashem wanted this to happen actually, or something like that.
So apparently none of those things are a problem, because it's not making their own religious holiday.
Those aren't?
It's not a problem.
Feinstein said this?
Well, he speaks about Thanksgiving,
and
he basically, as far as I remember, he says that it's not a problem. Because there's nothing that they're doing as a religious act. There's customs that they think about, but they're not eating turkey religiously. If it would be Jews, so then you'd have to eat a certain amount within a certain amount of, like by the Seder, L'havdil. We would say, well, you got to eat a kazayas, and you got to eat it within this amount of minutes, and we'd have all... No, it doesn't...
it's not like a mitzvah or something.
Right, unlike December 25th.
Yeah,
That's
different. Does he talk about that? Does Feinstein talk about that too, maybe?
I'd have to look it up, because it's been a while since I saw it, but he clearly speaks about Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, then you have Labor Day. So Labor Day is a day that they don't go to work. Is that interesting? Labor Day, you don't go to work.
Yeah.
But again, it's not a religious day. And they're not going to work on principle of religion.
So Feinstein is taking this other approach about like not even working at all, but actually it has to have
like the Rambam, not like Rashi.
Okay.
That it's if they do it as a religious thing.
Interesting.
What else what other days do we have in the United States? We have.
Well, the Rambam I thought did say.
He said they cannot make any day a Shabbos or like Shabbos, or
Shabbos.
make for themselves any holiday.
Okay.
But it doesn't say you can't just take off work and not go to work.
Okay.
But Rashi seems to imply, no, you can't take off work. If you're not sick, you got to go do your job, got to work. Let's continue. Next. Last paragraph on Shin Nun Zayin. Yesh mehar Rishonim. There are from the Rishonim, Soivrim, that they hold, Shebnei Noach mitzuvim al mitzvahs tzedakah. The Bnei Noach are commanded, are obligated to give what we say in English, the translation in English is charity. Shenemar, because there's a verse which states, Laseis tzedakah umishpat, that Hashem saw that Avraham is going to command his future generations to do tzedakah umishpat, and righteousness. Ucheshem, and just as, shemi mishpat, it's from the word mishpat, justice. Lomadnu, we've learned, mitzvahs dinim libnei Noach. That verse, by the way, if you recall, at least according to one opinion, that was the source that teaches us the mitzvah of dinim, because the verse says, Laseis tzedakah umishpat, and mishpat means judgment. Kach lemedim mitzdaka, so too we learn out from the word tzedakah, shepirusha kemashma'a, that its interpretation is just like its implication, namely mitzvahs tzedakah. It doesn't just mean, well, judge justly. Tzedakah comes from the root tzedek, which means righteousness. So we're not just saying judge justly and righteously. No, tzedakah, charitably, give charity. So then again, why isn't it included in the Shev Mitzvahs? By now we know the answer. V'lo chashavua b'sheva hamitzvahs, and it is not included. They don't consider it one of the seven. L'fishi b'kum v'asei, because it is a positive commandment. Get up and give the needy, clothe the naked, feed the hungry.
Why would they use a verse from Avraham?
It's before the giving of the Torah.
Still, though.
No, not a problem. Not a problem. That's what I'm saying. When we spoke about the Shavua, the vow,
Yeah.
so we had Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Those were the three sources. Avram and Yitzchak with Avimelech, and Yaakov with
I
Esav.
think that'd be really dangerous, like from what I would say would be like a traditional Jewish view of that, because then a non-Jew could say, well, I want to circumcise because Avraham did it, or you know what I'm saying?
Right. So over there, the verse states clearly that it's for his descendants, not for all of mankind.
Or that Avraham, from the Talmud, it says that Avraham did all the mitzvahs. So
we said, first of all, that's not written. Of course, we have the verse that is a hint to it, but that is, he did that voluntarily.
Right.
Not just like Yaakov did it, but it can't override the Sheva Mitzvahs. We could still learn out Sheva Mitzvahs from statements made there. The problem is, in this verse, it does say his children. Leman asher yitzaves banav uveisoi aseis tzedakah mishpat. Want to pass me a chumash, please? Anyone? The blue one. No. Next. Yes. Thank you.
Bereshis Yud
Yud Ches. Yud Tes. Yeah. All right. So the previous verse says like this. This is when Hashem is going to destroy Sodom. So he says, how can I not tell Avraham about it? And Avraham is going to be a great nation, an awesome nation. And from him will be blessed all the Goyei Haaretz, all the nations of the land. And then comes verse Yotes 19. This is Bereshis 18, chapter 18, verse 19. Ki yada'ativ, for I have known him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they will guard the way of Hashem to do tzedakah u'mishpat.
Might seem like a very good proof text.
So it's being given to the household. Also, who's going to be blessing? They'll be using his name as a blessing?
That's not what it says here.
What does it say
The verse?
about blessing?
Oh, the previous verse. Yeah, and all the nations of the land will be blessed in him, through him. Because
So that means that they'll be blessed from him, or
Because of him.
or they'll be using his name as a blessing.
they will be blessed because of him. And it does say all the nations of the world. So that would imply clearly that it's for all Bnei Noach. But then the verse itself says his children and his household after him.
So to use this as a proof text, you'd have to connect it to either being a member of his household or of his children.
Yeah, so the word
Depending on how
umishpat.
we understand the nations blessed, if the nations are using, they might be using him as an example. If they're saying, may you be like Abraham and his household, or something like that, then they're using him as an example by using him as a blessing.
Well, you don't have to be like him in order to receive that blessing, is from what I'm gathering.
Well, we learned out dinim according to some from the word elikim. Remember that we had that one verse back by Adam. But here, wait, Sav. Okay, fine. I got the answer. Okay. We had to use a few psukim. We did like this. We learned out all 7 back in Bereshis. But from that one verse where Hashem put him in Gan Eden, he commanded him, and he told him, you shall eat from all the trees except for this one. Don't. But for some of those words, we have to say, well, how does that word imply this? So over there was a word, one of the words, let's see, let's get that verse. The verse is Beis Tezayin, chapter 2, verse 16. It says, Vayitzav Hashem Elokim al ha'adam leimar mikol eitz hagon achil teichelu, from all that Hashem Elokim commanded on man, saying, from all the trees of the garden you shall eat. Okay, so we were learning out from this. According to Rabbi Yochanan, if you recall, Vayitzav, the word Vayitzav, that teaches us dinim. And then to show us that Vayitzav doesn't just mean any commanded, but how does that mean court system? So then we go to Avram's pasuk, this pasuk.
Okay.
Back by Adam,
Yeah, I remember that.
Vayitzav.
Yeah, I remember
Vayitzav
that.
just means that Hashem commanded him. How does that mean you have to have a court system? So it says, because by Avraham it says Leman in order, Asher Yitzaveh, that he will command, that's the key word. His children, his household, that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter that it's exclusively Avram's family, fine. But what's he going to command them? Lasa is to do tzedakah umishpat. So you have the word mishpat there. So now we know that in Bereshis, where it says Vayitzav, it means mishpat, it means court system.
But then but then I could say the same thing about circumcision.
Why? Where do we have
It doesn't say that in the verse, though.
Not that verse, but
Right.
I could go to circumcision and say, well, let's just do away with the children and his descendants.
Yeah.
No, but the Talmud
No.
is pointing to that verse.
Right. In other words, the key verse is this one where Hashem is putting Adam in Gan Eden and he's commanding him. So we're learning out all 7 from that verse. So now, if you're going to go to Bris Milah and you're going to see, well, what happens over there? What does Hashem say? So by Bris Milah, it it doesn't use the word vayitzav. So the whole thing is clearly telling Avraham to circumcise himself and his whole household and his descendants. So there's no room to say that it means more than that. It repeats the word bris, covenant, many times.
But I can still use that logic on any mitzvah that I find that says vayitzav, right?
Oh, so that's another point.
You know what I'm saying?
In order to do that, we have to have the tradition that we do that. We can't just do it on our own. We can't make it, it's called a gzeira shava, where you have a word here and a word there. So one cannot make up a gzeira shava. It has to be that we have this tradition going all the way
For
forward.
that one specific word or
Right,
portion.
right.
Okay.
I'm saying, but it doesn't even say vayitzav over here by Mila, by the bris Mila. So, being that in this verse of vayitzav and Avraham, it says tzedakah and mishpat. So you say, hey, if we said mishpat means dinim, well, it also says tzedakah. So going back to using the word vayitzav by Adam, what did Hashem command him? Tzedakah. He's got to give charity. Why don't we list it as one of the seven, or let's make it an eighth or a ninth or whatever? Because it's a positive commandment. So it's just as important. Well, I shouldn't say that because it's not a capital offense. It's just as commanded. It's just not in the official list of the seven, as we keep on reiterating, because it's a positive one of get up and give charity, as opposed to don't. And this is one of the two positive commandments that was added to Bnei Noach. So again, what was the first one? This is the second. What was the first?
That was commanded to.
In addition to the seven, that it's an outright commandment. No, do you remember?
We just did it.
That was derived from it, or that was explicit?
It sounds like a negative one.
Oh, to work.
Right, to work. Not to rest, or not to keep Shabbos. To work. So those are the two that were added. Working and tzedakah. So they were added to the seven. They're just not part of the list. We didn't expand the list and say, the 9 mitzvahs Bnei Noach. No. There are 9. We're not saying that because the 7 is the ones of don't, the negative ones.
So scribbling notes, I'm okay.
On Shabbos? What do you mean? When? What?
Right now.
Scribbling notes?
I'm writing my notes down.
Yeah, what do you...
I'm working.
Well...
I'm safe.
Well, we said it means what you normally do. Are you a scribe? Is that what you do for your profession? You're not a scribe. So, in other words, lighting a candle is not going to work unless that is your job, unless you are a lamplighter. Then, by you refraining for 24 hours to light the lamps.
Oh, we're looking at Parnassa?
Well, we're looking at an occupation, yeah.
So what? Yeah. So we got to figure out what's the person's occupation.
Right. And what happens if a person what's the term? Independently wealthy.
Yeah.
He's independently wealthy. That might be a problem because he's got to work. What do you mean? You got to do something. So you don't have to do it to earn money, but lo yishbaisu. Day and night, don't rest. You're a human being. You're part of the natural world of Hashem. You can't rest. Of course, you go to sleep. Of course, you take a coffee break. But you can't have 24 hours of break. Or for the sake of holiday, for the sake of Shabbos. V'yesh shenira midivreihem, and there is room to say, it appears from their words, she'ena mitzuvim al kach, that they're not really commanded, that they're allowed to take upon themselves this mitzvah of tzedakah. It's not that it's an outright commandment in the sense that if they don't do it, they're transgressing. It's just not a capital offense, but they're still transgressors. No. It's all gain, no loss. Tzedakah is the type of mitzvah where if a Ben Noach wants to do it, he can, and then he's actually fulfilling a mitzvah. But if he doesn't want to give tzedakah, he's not transgressing.
Who says this?
Well, the source they bring on that in 332 is they tell you look up the Rambam and look up the Rashi. Rambam 10:10. What does he say about stuck over there?
If he wants to.
Right.
I don't want to get into it.
Yeah.
You can if you want.
Right. Well, it depends who and depends what and all that. Yeah. And if we accept it from him and all that. Okay. Fine, but that's what they're pointing
You
to.
can talk about it. You already know.
Okay, let's turn the page. Top of page, Shin Nun Ches. 358.
Does he really even bring up that?
Yes, he does. Footnote 332 says,
fine.
but it doesn't say that as a source. He says, take a look.
Yeah. Take a look, just to
And take a look in the Rashi. Okay.
just to make it go a little crazy.
B'mitzvahs kibud of ein ben Noach mitzuvah. In the mitzvah of honoring one's parents, or literally the saying honoring a father, means parents, a ben Noach is not commanded. The yesh shekasav, and there's someone who wrote, shemikol makim, that nonetheless, kiblu aleihem, they accepted it upon themselves, mimois olam kibudav. Way back from the beginning of time, it has been universally accepted to honor and respect one's father, even though there's no commandment from Hashem to do that. So that's how some look at it, but once they took it upon themselves, so now they got to do it. The Amru, and here's how the logic goes. This is what they said. Migara maklola lecham. Who caused Cham, the son of Noach, to get cursed? Shebiza es aviv, for he desecrated, he big time embarrassed his father. Avol Yefes, but the son Yefes, Shekibed aviv, who honored his father, Paralei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem paid him back. Ve'mekayimim ha-mitzvah b'nimuseihem, and they're fulfilling the mitzvahs with their common decency, and he's just saying that in one word, but this was the whole thing that we did in the Torah Shlema from Rabbi Kasher. That was what he was speaking a lot about, the nimuseihem, that there's common practice that the people took upon themselves. So he's saying that's how Kibbud Av is. So, and he's not even bringing any other opinion that says that no, they're actually commanded, and it would be in its part of the seven. It's just not one of the seven, but it's like, no, we're not saying that. We said that about Shabbos, we said about tzedakah. But when it comes to honoring parents, it is because it has been universally accepted from way back, and as we see, that Cham was punished for what he did, and Yefes was rewarded. But it's not that it's an outright commandment from Hashem. All right, let us do the next one as well. Bifriya or revia, in being fruitful and multiplying, having children. Ein b'nei Noach mitzuvim. B'nei Noach are not commanded. And the source for that is 337, that is Sanhedrin 59b, and Tosfos in Yevamis 62a. She'af al pi shenemar leNoach, that even though it says to Noach, in the Torah it says explicitly, Hashem said to Noach, V'atem prurvu. It's pretty clear. And you, in the plural, be fruitful and multiply. So, how is it not one of the commandments? It's like as clear as can be. Mikevan shaloi nishne b'Sinai, because it was not repeated at Sinai. Hashem did not tell Moshe Rabbeinu. Harikol mitzvah shnemra livnei Noach v'loi nishne b'Sinai liYisrael nemra v'loi livnei Noach. For any mitzvah that was said to the Bnei Noach and was not repeated at Sinai, that means that it's only for the Jewish people and not for Bnei Noach. For example, be fruitful, multiply. Yes, it was said to Noach clearly, but because it was not repeated for all of mankind at Sinai, that means the Jews have to keep it because it's written in the Torah. Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to write that it's the first mitzvah. Be fruitful and multiply. It was said to Adam, and then it was said to Noach again. And since Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, I want you to write that in the Torah, but the Torah is for the Jews. So that's how we know that the Jews are obligated and not the Bnei Noach. So in other words, it's the same logic, but it's the opposite. Yeah. On the one hand, we say that whatever happens prior to the revelation at Sinai is clearly Ben Noach related, even if it's Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the forefathers of the Jewish people. It's before Matan Torah, they're all Bnei Noach. That's one point, but the opposite point is, which it's really the same thing, is a lot of things happened before the giving of the Torah. At the giving of the Torah, Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu what to write. So the fact that he told him to write this, that's what makes it a mitzvah. Like we said, the Rambam explains that even those things which are explicit, such as Hashem tells Yaakov that your descendants will not eat from the Gid HaNosher, that particular part of the animal. The prohibition for Jews to eat the Gid HaNosher is not because Hashem said it to Yaakov. It's because Hashem told Moshe, I want you to write that in the Torah. And likewise, the mitzvah of circumcision is not because Hashem told Avraham, even though he said clearly, you and your descendants, that's not why we have to keep it. Mm-hmm. It's because Hashem told Moshe to write that I told Avraham, you and your descendants. So too, even when it comes to mitzvah B'nai Noach, the only reason why B'nai Noach have to keep any mitzvahs that they do have to keep is because Hashem told Moshe, I want you to write and tell them that they have to. And since when it comes to the mitzvah of Pru'ervu, it's only written that Hashem told Noach, but it wasn't that tell them or hint to them or write it in such a way. No, it's simply telling us that Hashem told Adam, then Hashem told Noach after the flood, Pru'ervu, which means that it's only for the Jews.
It's only for the Jews, or it was only for Noah?
Only for the Jews. Historically, it was for Adam and for Noach. And that changed, he's not saying that here, but that we learned elsewhere, that was one way to look at it, that when it came to the giving of the Torah, the rules changed.
So if Noah was alive, he's probably thinking, don't have to do that one anymore.
Do the Jewish people learn it from being given to Noach?
Yes, because it's written in the Torah that was given to Moshe at Sinai. In other words, after the giving of the Torah, chronologically, nowhere does it say to have children. There's no mitzvah.
No, but when you look through the mitzvahs and they say, okay, you're learning it from this verse or from that verse, the Jew is learning it from that verse.
Correct. Which is fine, because that verse was written after the revelation at Sinai.
Right, yeah.
Or whatever. The Moshe wrote it. That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
Hashem told Moshe, I want you to write the following. Bereshis, in the beginning, Bar Elikim, Hashem created Eis HaShamayim, the heavens, Veisar, it's on the earth. I want you to write the story of creation. And I'm going to dictate to you letter by letter what to write. Got it. Then write this story, write this story, write this story. So because he's telling them what to write, that is telling us what our obligations are.
And how do we know whether something is for the non-Jew?
Because it had to be given to Moshe to tell it to the non-Jews.
To tell it to the non-Jews.
Right, and that's the list of 7. Or if you're going to include,
that would be through the oral,
right,
the oral Torah,
and it's alluded to, it's hinted to in that one verse of Adam being put in Gan Eden.
So when it's repeated at Sinai, that's a repetition into the oral Torah.
Right.
Okay. Or through the oral Torah. Okay.
Right. That's correct. So that is one way of learning it. And according to that, very simple. B'nai Noach don't have to have children. I mean, you're going to say, well, in that case, how's the world going to continue? We didn't say that they shouldn't or that they won't, but we're just saying that it's no transgression, it's no commandment. That an individual is allowed to say, I choose not to get married and not to have children, and they're not transgressing anything. Of course, we run into a problem if everybody takes that approach. Fine, they could have that about a lot of things. So that doesn't make it a commandment, that just makes it, a situation where we need to remedy. But
it doesn't seem to be a current concern.
Well,
with the population today, yeah.
Yeah, well, there are other concerns, though. The Yesh Soivrim, and then there are others that hold. Shebnei Noach mitzuvim al priya revia. That Bnei Noach are indeed commanded to have children, be fruitful and multiply. Now, in footnote 340, he brings down that the Emek She'ela, which is a commentary on the She'iltos, he's better known as the Netziv. He explains how, even according to the Gemara in Sanhedrin, which was the source that Bnei Noach are not commanded to have children, he explains that even according to that Gemara, we can say that they are. So he wants to make the case that everybody agrees that Bnei Noach are commanded to have children. But otherwise, the way they're saying it over here is they're saying, no, according to the Gemara in Sanhedrin, it seems like Bnei Noach are not commanded. And according to the She'iltos, which is quite early, they are commanded. V'yesh shemechalkin. And then there are those that make the following distinction. Ad matan Torah hayu mitzuvim. Until the giving of the Torah, Bnei Noach were commanded. I mean, after all, Hashem told Adam, and then he told Noach after the flood, Pru Urvu, Atem, you in the plural, Pru Urvu. So they say, okay, so all of mankind was obligated, was commanded. Umi Sinai va'elach, and from the giving of the Torah at Sinai and on, Nitla mehem, this commandment was revoked from them. V'nitzna li Yisrael bilvad, and it was given to the Jewish people alone.
After Sinai?
Yeah, from then on. Till Sinai, all of mankind are obligated, commanded, have children. Now at the revelation of Sinai, the commandment from Bnei Noach was revoked, and now it only applies to the Jew, Bnei Yisrael.
At the time of Sinai.
From Sinai on.
Yeah.
V'lochein, and therefore, lo chashavua b'minyan sheva mitzvahs, that's why it's not included in the 7. Because it was not given for all future generations. In order for a mitzvah to be counted as a mitzvah, like for the 613 for Jews, and for that matter for the 7 of Bnei Noach, it has to be a mitzvah which is for all future generations. It can't be something temporary. Like, for example, there are commandments in the Torah about the man, that miraculous manna food that came from heaven during the 40 years in the wilderness. So it's clearly there's a bunch of rules that Hashem told Moshe, tell the Jews that they can't do this, can't do that, can't do this. And they're not counted as part of the 613. That's because it was only during that period of time that there was man. So for a mitzvah to be counted as a mitzvah, it's got to be permanent. And the same thing with Shev Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. We're only going to count the ones that are permanent, which are the 7. Or the other ones where we said are in addition to them, which are counted, just not one of the 7 for whatever the technical reason of being positive, negative. But this mitzvah of having children, which is interesting because all you have to do is say that the reason why it's not counted is because it's a positive mitzvah. But he's not saying that at this point. He's saying it's because it was only up until the giving of the Torah that all of mankind was commanded, so it's not permanent. And even if you're going to say, take this approach, and they're not obligated, they're not required to have children, b'nei priya, but they are in the category of being fruitful and multiply. Meaning, shimayu leibanim b'yoisei nachri v'niskayer kiyem mitzvahs kiyem priya. You have an interesting question. Everybody agrees, no matter what opinion, that a Jew is obligated to have children, right? That's clear. That's no question. However you want to explain it, whether the Bnei Noach also have to, or whether they don't, or whether they did and then it was revoked, whatever. But Bnei Yisrael, of course, they have to. Here's the case. A Ben Noach, a non-Jew, a goy, had children. Okay? And then he was niskayer. He converted to become a Jew. Did he fulfill his mitzvah as a Jew of having children? Or no, it doesn't count. He was a goy, and the kids, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Why?
Because he was always Jewish or something. He was always a Geyer, basically.
He was not.
Actually, didn't the Rambam, or didn't the Rebbe say that?
No. You're bringing down the Chida, who says Ger Shniskayer and not Goy Shniskayer.
Yeah, right.
But he certainly was not a
The
Jew
Chida
until
says that.
until he became a Jew. He wasn't a Jew. Let's put it this way: retroactively, all the things that he did that a Jew could only be done as a Jew. Are they now kosher now that we know that he became a Jew? For example, a 20-year-old non-Jew, his mother's not Jewish, so a 20-year-old non-Jew, tied tzitzis, wrote a Sefer Torah, wrote tefillin, baked matzah, you name it. Things that, in order for them to be kosher, it has to be done by a Jew.
Oh, I knew this answer was.
He did that. And now, when he turned 25, he went through a 100% proper conversion without any question. Are you going to say that those tzitzis and tefillin and Torah and matzah are kosher for consumption for a Jew or for usage? Absolutely not. There's no
Not
question.
for a Jew, but for himself. I
Oh,
thought.
absolutely not.
Really?
Absolutely not. There's no question about it. No question about it. And according to your logic, why not for another Jew as well?
Because I'm a Kabbalah and he's not accepted yet.
And you're saying he's a ger shniskayer? We're not talking about a ger toishav. We're talking about a ger
No, I'm
tzedek.
talking to Gert Tzedek. A Gert Tzedek is the verbiage used is
Kabel?
makabel too.
You're saying where it says we're not makabel ger toishav, it just says
No,
we're-
I'm talking about Gert Toshav. I'm talking about Gert Tzedek. You have to makabel a Gert Tzedek as well. In other words, let's put it in my frame of thought. It's talking about acceptance by Yisrael. It's not talking about accepting him as a Jew, accepting him as a ger.
You're making a mistake. You're going too far. In other words, ger shniskayer means to say that completely on a spiritual level, he was born with this neshama in a state of concealment. On a practical level, in halacha, he is 100% not Jewish. And let me say something which nobody can prove one way or the other. I can't prove my way, you can't prove your way. I don't believe it could be proven, what I'm going to say now. Hypothetically, can a person be born with a neshama of a ger sheniskayer, and for whatever reason, live through life or die without actually becoming a Jew, without becoming a ger tzedek? Can that happen? So it's hypothetical. So I'm saying, yeah, theoretically, yeah. It's a tragedy. It's so sad because here's a neshama that should have become Jewish. He should have had the bris, gone to mikveh, and accepted the mitzvahs in front of a beis din. And he had that neshama to do it. And but he didn't, so he didn't. And you're going to say, no, Hashem would never let that happen. If he had that neshama in.
No, I think you're confusing me. In other words, I think we have a completely different, and when I say we, I'm not talking about just me and you. We have a completely different view. I think we try and translate the Hebrew into English, and then we talk in the English. But in the Hebrew, it's really saying makablin and accepting him. It's not saying he's becoming. You see, what's going on about the goy sheniskayer, or the ger sheniskayer thing. You're accepting him.
The term in Chazal, where the words ger sheniskayer come from, the entire statement is ger sheniskayer kikatan shenoi lodome. That a ger that converts, it's the English word, I guess, that a convert that converts, which is the tricky thing, that's how is like a child that is born. Meaning that halachically, he now becomes a new entity. He's
From his perspective, or
from
your
Hashem's perspective.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure. Yeah. Even though Hashem gave him that neshama at birth, or even before birth, and he was destined to become a ger. But until he actually becomes a ger, and it even speaks about it in detail when it comes to certain things in
It doesn't
halakha.
say becoming. That's what I'm kind of getting
Kikatan
at.
shenoila. That's the point. That's what it says. That was my point of quoting it. Ger shniskayer
A ger that gers.
Right. Kikatan shenoila dami is like a child or a newborn infant that is, he's was just born. Meaning, let's say the last stage, for argument's sake, is it just, it's easiest to picture like this, is the actual immersing himself in the mikveh. So let's say he accepted in front of the Beis Din to keep all 613 as a Jew. He had his bris milah. Okay, is he Jewish yet? He didn't go to mikveh yet.
Is he Jewish? But it doesn't say he's a Jew.
He's not Jewish yet.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like you're kind of making stuff up that's not really said in the.
No,
Hebrew.
it's very, very specific.
Exactly.
Halacha is extremely
so why
detailed.
are we speaking like that? Why are we
No, I want to be very specific.
But he's not a Jew.
He's not.
He's
correct.
not.
Right, that's my point.
But he's not even a Jew after he converts.
He is 100% a Jew.
No, he's not. Can he marry? Can he marry just like a Jew?
What do you mean? Not every Jew can marry just like every Jew. A Kohen can't marry the same people that I can marry.
Okay.
But I'm just as Jewish as a Kohen is. There's different restrictions.
And a ger?
A Ger also, he could basically marry anyone who I can marry.
No.
Well, a couple of restrictions, maybe.
Exactly.
So, but I'm
That's
not.
my point.
But that doesn't mean a Kohen is more Jewish than me.
No, because you're saying Jewish, but it's not. It's the Yisrael's the term.
Okay, is a Kohen a Yisrael?
Yeah.
No, he's a Kohen.
Uh,
There's Kohen, Levi, Yisrael.
there's a greater Yisrael too.
Oh, so in the greater Yisrael,
Yeah.
a Ger is absolutely a Yisrael.
Yeah.
Right. So he is a
Exactly.
Yisrael. So that is my point. He is a Yisrael.
Yeah, but you're saying Jew.
Forget, I don't know English. Forget Jew, forget Hebrew.
Yeah.
Let's use the term
It's all
Yisrael.
Okay.
And what does Yisrael mean?
Depends. Klal Yisrael, B'nai Yisrael, probably both mean different things.
No. See, it's very clear. It's extremely
not, though.
clear.
It's not.
No, in Jewish law, it's really, in Jewish theology, in Torah, and in halacha, it's crystal clear. Philosophically, maybe there's room to discuss. According to Pnimis and in Kabbalah, maybe we can get into things. In Ruchniya, spiritually, maybe we can get into all sorts of debates or various explanations. But if you want to speak in practical and in legal terminology, Jewish law terminology, it's crystal clear. And again, without getting into semantics and getting caught up in saying Jew or Hebrew or Yisrael or Yehudi or Bnei Yisrael or Klal Yisrael or Bas Yisrael or Ben Yisrael, that diverts, that's too confusing. There is the concept of a Yisrael. A Yisrael means someone who, Yehudi is the term, like Mihu Yehudi. The who is a Jew issue in Eretz Yisrael.
And that's a tribe too.
So what? So it's a tribe. Big deal. Someone who is from one of the other 11 tribes is still a Yehudi. So you have a good question. Why is he called a Yehudi if he's not from...
So there is a tribe of Yehudi, or there's not a tribe of Yehudi?
Yeah, it's like saying there's a Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael. Like when the Torah is read, 3 people are called up, Kohen, Levi, Yisrael. So does that exclude the Kohen and Levi from being Yisrael? No, they're also Yisrael. It's just that they have a specific tribunal connection. It's like saying Kohen and Levi.
Yeah.
Oh, so Kohen's not a Levi? Well, a Kohen is also called a Levi.
So somewhere throughout history that got changed.
What got changed?
It got changed to say a Levi is now a Jew, a Yehudi.
Well, that was in the book of Esther.
At least, could be much earlier.
Yeah.
Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan habira.
Okay.
And some say that he was from Shevet Yehuda. Some say no, he's a direct descendant in his paternal line from Shaul, that is from Shevet Binyamin.
Okay.
He's not from the tribe of Yehuda, but he's called a Yehudi,
Okay.
at least there. The point is, without getting into semantics, the term used, Mihu Yehudi, the who is a Jew issue, which means that the person's mother has to be Jewish. Well, what does that mean? It means her mother. Well, what does that mean? So it's going to end. It's not like, well, it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? No. I will take you back less than 200 generations. In other words, my mother is Jewish. What does that mean? You're trying to avoid the word Jew for me, so let's define it to my mother. No, I'll take it back. It's because her mother is Jewish. And her mother, and her mother, and her mother. And then we're going to go back to the group of people, the 600,000 men between ages 20 to 60, plus all of the other men or whoever, including the mixed multitude if you really want, fine. Whoever was there, led by Moshe from Mitzrayim and is standing at the foot of Sinai. We know exactly the location, we know the date, we know the day, everything, right? On the 6th of Sivan in the year 2448, on Shabbos, in the early morning, in the wilderness, by Mount Sinai. Okay, those people, that group of people, became Yehudim, Yisrael, whatever it is, Jewish.
That's what I'm saying. I hate.
Forget the words. So no words. So what do you want me to say? Make up your own word.
I don't want to make up my own word.
But we have to understand it conceptually. Don't get caught up in semantics.
I do understand it conceptually.
So those.
But the conception is only in your subjective consciousness.
No. There's nothing subjective over here.
In order for us to talk
this is
about
all,
it, we have
it's
to
all
bring
objective. This is God's law. Very important. This is God's law. This is the Shulchan Aruch is written based on what I'm telling you now. Those people there, what would you like to call them? Those people that were at the foot of Sinai, that were the chosen people that were spoken to when he said, Anoichi Hashem Elokecha, and he said the Ten Commandments.
It would be Yisrael.
Okay, so we're calling them Yisrael, to the exclusion of every other human being on the planet at the time. The Mitzrim that were alive, the Canaanim that we were heading towards that land, and all the other 70 nations. They're not Yisrael. Okay. So it's these people, which most of them are biological descendants of Avraham, even though he had others, Yitzchak, even though he had others, Yaakov, which were all these people are from Yaakov, and Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, but that's it, these people. And again, the mixed multitude, if you want to count them, fine. We learn out the laws of Gerus from Matan Torah. We learn that what's required for a person to become a Yisrael is, if he's male, a bris milah.
Does it say to become a Yisrael?
Yeah.
Where?
What do you mean where? The laws of Gerus?
Yes.
Of course.
I don't think it says to become a Yisrael.
To become a what? A ger?
For instance, the Rambam, he says a goy that wants to come under the wings of the Shekhinah.
Okay.
He doesn't say that he's a Yisrael.
So who says that those people are called Yisrael? I asked you to give me a word because we have to have some kind of a word for language. You chose Yisrael. Where does it say that those people are called Yisrael? They're called Bnei Yisrael throughout the whole thing. But who says that group
I'm getting that from Shema Yisrael.
Because Moshe spoke to them 40 years later and he said Shema Yisrael. So that's what he decided to call them. Big deal. Based on that, you're going to decide that those people are called Yisrael. I'm not disagreeing, but you can't keep going back, back and forth. Whatever you want to call those people, call them Gerim. How about that? Because we learned the halachas of Gerus from there.
Because
they all went right.
Gerim.
That's right. So they were Gerim, not to be confused with a Ger Toishav or a Ger sojourner right.
I totally agree.
So we mean over here a Ger Tzedek in the rabbinic terminology. It doesn't say Ger Tzedek anywhere in the Bible. We're nowhere in the Chumash or the whole Tanakh, as far as I know. Okay, but let's call them Ger Tzedek for the purpose of discussion.
Okay.
So they all became Ger Tzedek, including the Kohanim. And that's kind of tricky, because a Ger Tzedek can't become a Kohen, like the famous joke.
They got split out later.
Okay, they became Kohanim and Leviim later, and our whole tribunal connection, association, even though it was earlier, but became later, like where to camp, and each one is represented with a different stone and a flag, fine. But at the time, we all were lumped together, and we became Gerim, fine.
Okay.
So the term now is Ger.
Okay.
So all those people, how does one become a Ger? Because of bris, because of acceptance, Nasa v'nishma, and because of going to the mikveh, which they all went to. And then there's an obligation to bring a carbon and to have the blood of the sacrifice sprinkled on the person. So there's 3 things for a man that makes him a ger. And then he has to bring the carbon, but that's not going to make it or break it. This is an obligation. That's why today, without the Beis Hamikdash, we can still have people become Gerim. They just have to bring a carbon, like many people have to bring for many reasons. That's how the Ragachover explains it. The Rebbe Melech HaMashiach brings on the Ragachover that the carbon, the sacrifice, is not part of the essence process of becoming a ger. But what is part of the essence process? So for a woman, 2 things necessary. Formally, whatever that means, in front of the basin, let's just say, accepting to keep the 613 and to go to the mikveh. And for a man, it's those 2 plus bris milah. When a person goes through that, he became a ger. When he did 2 out of 3, he's in the process, he's not yet a ger. And let's say the guy died, he passed away after he did 2 out of the 3. Did he die as a ger or as a goy? Where is he to be buried? What are we?
Those are things that are shaykh to you.
No, I'm saying, what does the Shulchan Aruch say? What is God's will? What's His law? I'm not talking about subjectively.
No, yeah, I know. I'm talking about objectively too. You're talking about sometimes 2 different things that are only shaykh to him in his relationship with Hashem, and things that are shaykh to you in your relationship to him.
I'm just bringing out the things that are shaykh to me in my relationship to him to be able to discern and to define what is his real essence and status.
And I think the things that are between you and him, you and I would completely agree on. But to be able to say, without a doubt, his relationship to Hashem or her relationship to Hashem, I'm not going to judge that person.
We have to. That is the problem with the law of return in Israel today. Mm-hmm. So it's something which is very, very relevant. It's not something which is flexible.
But he's returning, but that's something that you're shy of.
No. Again, you keep grabbing onto words. James, the law of return is the silly term that they're using now since 1948. It's not... It's called in Hebrew Chok HaShavut, which means the law of return, because they want people to come back to the land. The point is, there was a law that initially said that, this is the way the terminology in the Hebrew is, that as far as the bylaw of the modern day so-called state of Israel, what they accept as a Yehudi is Misha Nolad Le'em Yehudiyah, someone who was born from a Jewish woman, or alternatively, Sheniskayer Kahalacha, that converted by Jewish law. And then, that was 1948.
But I would agree with that.
And then, because of a certain incident, they voted on it, and unfortunately it passed, and in the Knesset, around 1970, they took out, they made an amendment, and they took out the word kahalacha.
Yeah, right.
And now it reads that who is called a Yehudi? Anyone whose mother is a Yehudiyah or converted, period. And the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach screamed about that for hours and hours. Says that was the worst thing that ever happened in history. Right. And they took out the word kahalacha. What's the tragedy of taking out the word kahalacha?
It takes you out of the picture.
Who's you?
You, the rest of Yisrael.
Meaning that person, if
that means
Takes
that
the
you
Torah.
have no gate. That means that you have no way of allowing people to come in or out. It means anybody can be, I'm a Jew.
Right. And
That's
what's wrong with that?
Because it obligates you to do things that are in halakha, just like you would a Yisrael, rather than a Goy or a Ben Noach or whatever.
So does it have any effect on the person's relationship with Hashem, or is it only between the Jewish community and that individual?
It depends. If he's doing something that Hashem doesn't want him to do, and he's doing it, then that's a problem. And also, it does affect Yisrael, because now he's imposing himself on the community when the Jewish people are anusim. They're under duress by whatever government or whatever to accept these people.
What's wrong with accepting them?
Because they haven't went through the process, right? They haven't
So
went
what?
through.
It's only Mekablim, you're saying. It's only our relationship to him.
Yeah, and you have an external government. You have a government forcing you to makabel this person.
Who's you? Isn't the government me? Isn't that the body which is representing the Jewish people? So if they decided so,
It sounds like a little bit of an existential problem on the Jewish people's part. Is Israel, the political Israel today, the extension of an actual religious Torah-abiding Yisrael?
So let's say that it absolutely is not.
Okay, then you guys are a nusim under a foreign
Yeah, but
entity.
you're missing the main point. The main point is the guy's not a Yehudi.
Exactly, I agree, and he's being forced upon you, and which is the same problem the Rebbe probably saw, which he got so upset. I'm upset about.
So that person is not a Yehudi. That's all. If he didn't go through the process, his relationship with Hashem is as a non-Jew, not a Jew.
From your perspective.
Why do you have to add that? Say what you were saying a minute ago.
Because if he's imposing himself and calling himself a Jew, but
it
he's
doesn't
not
matter
going
what he
through the
calls
process.
himself, and it doesn't matter what the Israeli government calls it. It matters what does Hashem call him, and we do know it's not a.
But you can't know until it's actually gone through the process. If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So if the guy thinks he's a duck, he's going to do all those things like a duck. And so if he thinks he's a Ger Tzedek, he's going to do the things like a Ger Tzedek.
And he may not be, in fact.
Right, exactly. But my point is, he has to go through that process in order for you to verify whether he is or not.
No, he needs to go through the process in order for him, in essence, to become a Jew. And until then, his essence, even though he may have a neshama which is concealed in him, but that's not a Jew. He is 100% not a Jew.
I think I would agree with that.
All right, so then what's the argument?
Well, let's go on to like the essence of a Ger Toshav.
No. Let's not. No. I don't want to. I want to stay clear on this.
Okay. Well, the problem is this. The problem is that Ger Tzedek that process is open today. That process is open. To
Explain.
become a Ger Tzedek, that process, that availability is open for a non-Jew to do.
And the only way to do it is if he does it kahalacha.
Correct. What about the Ger Toshav?
Wait. No, 1 second. Until he does it kahalacha,
Correct.
he's not a Ger Tzedek.
Right.
And that is between him and Hashem.
And the Jewish people, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm saying even between him and Hashem.
Right.
And if, let's say, he was about to immerse in the mikveh, he went through accepting all the mitzvahs, he had a bris milah, he just has to go to mikveh for the sake of geirus, and he didn't do that yet. And then he passed away. Was that a Yisrael, a Yehudi, a Jew who died, or was that a non-Jew? It's absolutely clear. There's no question about it.
So even if he had the kavanah to
He had all the kavanah in the world. He knew more than anybody ever knew. He knew more than Moshe Rabbeinu. He knew all the Kabbalistic Kabbalahs more than Reb Shimon ben Yochai.
So he's not going to be a Yisrael.
He died.
Yeah,
Maybe
did die. He did die. But when
as a non-Jew.
When he comes back, what's he going to be?
But come back where?
Is he going to be resurrected?
Are non-Jews going to be resurrected? Any non-Jews?
Yeah.
Okay, then he's coming back as a non-Jew. What's the question?
And then he's going to fulfill whatever it is he probably needed to fulfill.
That's all spiritual stuff. That's all speculation. But we knew.
It's a reality.
But we know the reality
is it a reality
of things that we don't understand, that we don't know. I don't know the future.
I'm not telling you to predict the future.
You're saying he's going to come back. I don't know how he's going to come back. There's a concept of Gilgulim, right? Neshama's coming back.
Right, exactly. That's the reality.
That's a reality. But the guy who died, right? That fellow who died a moment before he went to the mikveh, he is as Jewish as anybody who denies anything, denies everything.
See, the reality
I would say he's as Jewish as the Pope, but I think some of the popes were actually
the
Jewish.
reality is there's no process today.
There absolutely is.
For Ger Toshav.
Why do you have to go back to Ger Toshav?
Because this is the reality for most non-Jews today, that there is not a process. So, in other words, if there is a process for Ger Tzedek today, which there is, if he doesn't go through that process, even though he fully is able to, you're saying that he's not a Ger Tzedek and he's not a part of Yisrael.
I'm not saying that. That's what Hashem says.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Okay.
And then for the Ger Toshav, not only is there not a process to become a Ger Toshav, a Katsas Gerus, not only is there a process, most definitely then from that perspective, he can't fulfill being a Ger. Therefore, he's considered to be still a part of the Amim, the people of the world, and he's not connected to Torah and things like that. He's still considered the Nochri, Akum, whatever guy. And he's always going to be separated from Hashem. And what you're saying is, yes, this is exactly what's going on. If you don't have the din,
everybody agrees.
If you don't have
got
the din,
pious among the nations of the world, which has the din of a ger teshav.
that doesn't say that.
Everybody agrees with that.
No, it doesn't agree with that. Because when you're reading this contradicts things that are talking about the ger toshav. This is my point. Everything here.
What have we studied that contradicts with the ger teshav?
One second. This Encyclopedia Talmudit,
Yes.
which is volume 3, and we're doing now, in alphabetical order, Ben Noach.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, in, I guess, the next volume, where we get to the letter Gimel, so there, of course, there's Ger, and there, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure, there is Ger Toshav. That is a section.
Is it theoretical today? Is ger toshav theoretical
They're
today?
going to go
Does ger
through,
toshav exist?
they're going to go through, just like they're doing here, it's an encyclopedia. So they're bringing down every piece of information with the footnotes and references. So they're going to bring you all of the material that there is on ger toshav.
Yeah.
But I don't know
pointless.
if the
Why
ger
even do it?
teshav is going to be talking about a ger teshav in Israel, or is it going to be talking about the ger teshav who lives in the United States?
Why build up people's hopes talking
What?
about ger toshav?
What?
Are you talking about this encyclopedia?
Yeah, encyclopedia, everything.
The point of the encyclopedia is information. And it's an Encyclopedia Talmudit, so therefore it's the Talmud information. A great deal of what it says over here is, on a practical level, extremely, unfortunately, irrelevant, because, for example, we need a Beis HaMikdash. So there could be a section over here called Korbanos, sacrifices. Jews haven't been able to bring sacrifices in nearly 2,000 years. We're looking forward to be able to do it, so it's something of the future. But that doesn't stop them, because this is not a book of halacha, this is not a Shulchan Aruch, this is an encyclopedia. It's a Talmudic encyclopedia, it's a Jewish encyclopedia, but it's an encyclopedia. So we want to cover a topic and get all the information we can. So in this case, it's Ben Noach. We didn't even bring in ger toshav yet. He didn't mention ger toshav. I don't think he did.
No.
Okay? But the way we got into this was the non-Jew who had children when he was not Jewish. So then when he becomes a ger, did he fulfill the mitzvah of puravu, which a Jew has to do? So you right away said, absolutely. Now, I'm not saying that you're wrong, but what's your logical explanation? That I may disagree with. Your outcome, we're about to see, happens to be right. That's why I went to a bit of an extreme, and I brought down other examples to kind of shake up your rationale. And that is, he made tzitzis, he wrote a Sefer Torah, he wrote tefillin, he baked matzahs. All those things need to be made by a Jew, Yehudi, Yisrael, whatever you want to call him. If I need a pair of tzitzis, so the garment is allowed to be manufactured by non-Jews, no problem. The holes can be punched by non-Jews, no problem. The strings, those threads, have to actually be made by a Jew. And then the tying of those strings cannot be made by someone who's not obligated in the mitzvah of tzitzis, meaning if a 12-year-old boy makes them...
Are you sure?
Absolutely. If a 12-year-old boy ties those tzitzis, he can't wear them when he turns bar mitzvah.
Are you sure?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Shulchan Aruch, Siman
Is it
Ches.
in the
or so.
Shulchan Aruch?
Yeah.
Because I read something different in the Talmud, so that means the halacha is different.
I don't recall it. Talmud in Menachos talks about it.
I'm thinking of a non-Jew who makes a Torah scroll.
That's also possible.
Okay. There's an opinion that says it's perfectly kosher. which is fine. Maybe the halakha is different.
There's something about it might need to be buried if it's made.
There's
by
a difference whether it has to be
non-Jew.
burnt or buried.
That's the issue in getting 45. It's
But
talking
it says
about,
that it doesn't have to be written by Yisrael.
it says. I think it says
If a non-Jew writes a Torah scroll, it could be used for kriyas. It could
I
be
think it
used
was
to.
referring to tefillin, and I think I think the thing was if he has their proper kavana, it's okay. He just can't use pig skin or something like that.
There's min apikoires. There's a few terminologies there, and some of them are talking about a Jewish heretic.
Yeah, this was talking about a.
Well, let's get back to the concept of
Okay,
tzitzis.
that's fine. It could be something like maybe halacha is ruled a certain way that doesn't take that opinion in or something.
Well, yeah, but I don't recall that there is an opinion that a nachari or a goy can write a sefer Torah and it'll be kosher. But tzitzis. So if a 12-year-old Jewish boy ties the tzitzis, he can wear them. Another Jewish child can wear it.
Oh, you're right. It is. It's the ger that's a min.
Okay, I'm in. Right.
Yeah. The ger that's a min.
The ger that's a min?
If the ger went back to his place because he's under duress, he doesn't want to be, but he got threatened by his family or something like that. So he makes like Torah scrolls on the side, and it's one of the rabbis said it's still kosher because he's under duress or something.
Right. What do you mean under?
But he's a Jew.
Yeah, he's a Jew. It's a Jew under duress.
Yeah, but there's also mentions in there about goyim, and then that's where it says that the goy is the akum and things like that. And it needs to be burned.
So anyway, so the tzitzis that the guy makes are not kosher, even though he's Jewish. He's a katan. He can't make tzitzis for bar mitzvah. Similarly, okay, what happens if the guy, he's learning everything about Judaism? He knows everything. He mamish knows everything. He went through everything. He just didn't go to mikveh yet. And now he makes himself this beautiful pair of tzitzis. Beautiful, but not a pair, sorry. Makes tzitzis. He ties the tzitzis. And right after he finishes making the tzitzis, he takes the plunge in front of the Beis Din. He already did the bris. He already accepted the mitzvahs. He made himself tzitzis. Then he goes to mikveh. Can he wear those tzitzis? Are they kosher tzitzis for a Jew? No. He can't wear them as a mitzvah, nor can any Jew. Okay? So the question now is, what about, he has children before he became a ger. Did he fulfill the mitzvah that a Jew has to have children, pruravu? So he says, Kiyem pruruvia. He did. But why? Shekevan shal kol panim b'neihem nikroim al shemam gam b'goyusam. That's because even before he became a ger, those children were called his children. While he was a guy, these goyish children were his children. Nikroim b'nei pirya v'rivya. Therefore, as far as this one mitzvah is concerned, there's still it's considered that he did the mitzvah, because this mitzvah is to bring children into the world, to father children, and he did it. The fact that now, by Torah law, he's technically not related to them, right? Remember, the Chachamim said that we have to treat them as, according to the biblical level, if after they were born, he was Niskayer and they were Niskayer, they're not related, and he'd even be allowed to marry his own daughter. But Chachamim said, no, he can't do that because it looks like he went from a higher level to a lower level. Okay. But as far as the positive is, he fulfilled the mitzvah. Why?
If they remain goyim.
That's right. But not for, I don't think that was the rationale you were thinking. Right. Am I correct?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Right. But your answer was the right one.
That's interesting.
But it's because...
It's a different rationale.
Right. All right, let's just finish this over here. To those that hold that the prohibition of destroying or wasting semen, is dependent on the mitzvah of having children. According to that opinion that links the prohibition of wasting or destroying the seed with the mitzvah of having children, so according to the opinion that Bnei Noach don't have this mitzvah anymore of having children from the giving of the Torah on, then they're also not forbidden to destroy the seed. But prior to the giving of the Torah, Matzinu, we find Shebnei Noach ne'enshu alavain zeh b'doramabul, that the Bnei Noach were punished. That was the main reason why the flood came along. V'chein ervo einan, and likewise those two sons of Yehuda that were married to Tamar, they both died for the same sin of spilling seed. So we see that it was, but according to the opinion that they don't have a mitzvah of pri or via anymore, they don't have a mitzvah of having children after the giving of the Torah, so too there would be no problem and no prohibition of spilling seed. I think we're going to leave it at this point. So we're up to page Shin Nun Ches on the right-hand column, just before the category of the Tosefes mitzvah.